All right, well, let's get started. Welcome, y'all. My name's Tim Harvey. I'm the Customer Renewable Solutions Manager for Austin Energy. Today, we're going to be offering some contractor training for the standard offer, a program that we anticipate to launch in the second week of January, so the week of the 13th. We expect to have another training for system owners that week. And we will start accepting applications that week as well. I would imagine that it's going to be towards the first of that week. So we haven't nailed down that date, but we will do that soon, and we will get that information out to y'all. I see I have a hand up already. Is that intentional, Destiny? No? Okay, let's move to the next slide. So the agenda for today, we're going to go over the program. We're going to go over the tariff, how to become a solar standard offer participating contractor. We're going to review the program documents. We're going to go through how to submit an application in the web-based application processing tool we call EECP. It stands for Energy Efficiency Collaboration Platform. Probably don't need to know that, but EECP might be a term that you need to familiar yourself with. System design, permitting, and installation will be reviewed, and then we'll talk about next steps and take questions. Next slide, please. So a holiday safety moment, which hopefully we've already kind of taken some of these precautions, but in case you need some more edification, here we go. Do not leave holiday lights on unattended. If you're leaving the home or office, turn off the lights until you return. Do not overload electrical outlets. Don't link more than the recommended number of light strands together. Most times, your light strands will say on them how many you can connect. It says 3 here. I think that's probably the standard for incandescent Christmas lights, and potentially LED Christmas lights can be more than that. But just make sure that you're following the directions and stipulations on the type of lights you're using. Connect strings of lights. There we go. Connect strings of lights to an extension cord before plugging the cord into the outlet. Make sure to periodically check the wires. They should not be warm to the touch. Don't block exits. Ensure trees and other holiday decorations aren't blocking an exit. Inspect holiday lights each year for frayed wires, bare spots, gaps in the insulation, broken crack sockets, excessive kinking or wear before putting them up. Use only lighting that is listed by an approved testing laboratory. And never put wrapping paper in the fireplace, because this can result in a very large fire that throws up dangerous sparks and could result in a chimney fire. So all good holiday information. Next slide. I'm going to go over their program overview slide. So the Community Solar the Solar Standard Offer program is in place to help add capacity to the community solar program. So we would do this by allowing system owners to work with commercial property owners to locate a community solar array there. And so the property owner would either be hosting or owning and hosting the solar array. The energy from that array is going to feed into the community solar program and add capacity to that so that we can enable more residential subscriptions to solar offerings from renters and people that may have shaded roofs or don't have access to capital. It really just expands the access to solar in our service territory. Through this program, the owner of the solar array will be compensated through the standard offer rate for all of the power generated and pushed back onto the grid. So this eliminates the need for lengthy procurement processes and RFPs and contract negotiations by having a standard rate. We'll go into the details of how that rate will adjust over time later on in this presentation. So again, we will open up the program to applications in January. We expect that to be the week of the 13th. This new program will be paused once we hit 20 megawatts of AC, and we've encumbered that. So when you submit an application, we will start reviewing the documentation that you have within there. Once it reaches a certain point of requirements there, we will issue an encumbrance. And at that point, we track that capacity towards the 20 megawatt goal. Once we are the 20 megawatt pause point, I should say. Once we hit that pause point, we will stop accepting applications, and we will evaluate our operational efficiency in the program and everything that's going on with the program to make any kind of necessary adjustments to strengthen the program offering, make it more customer friendly, make it more operationally efficient, especially from our perspective and how we're managing potentially interconnection queues and payments, etc. So, and then also the program guidelines are available on our website. Next slide. So the order that this program will work is Austin Energy will pay system owners for their solar production. The production is then attributed to the community solar program for residential subscriptions. System owners who may be a third party that's renting from the host, or it may be the host themselves. Will their the solar generators that they own produce electric or energy, and then we will compensate the owner of that system producing energy at the standard offer rider rate. Participating contractors, that's y'all, will be doing all of these installations. So a third-party owner could potentially also be a participating contractor. But regardless, all of these systems will have to be installed by a participating contractor. And so that means you're registered with Austin Energy. You've met the requirements to do so. The participating contractor will be responsible for pulling permits, submitting the applications and working those through the process, and basically installing the systems and getting them to final inspection approval. The system host may own the solar array, as I've said, or they may have a agreement with a third-party system owner, in which case the third-party system owner would be paying them some sort of a lease for their space. And the third-party system owner and the system host will need to negotiate that through their own terms. Austin Energy will not be involved in that negotiation. We will provide some guidance for consumer protection to the system host, but it's upon them to ensure that they're making sure that their interests are protected and met through the contract negotiation with the third party. So again, Austin Energy is very much at arm's length to that negotiation and will not be involved in any disputes in regards to that contract that they have for leasing. Next slide. So some of the benefits of these programs, for the property owner, they're going to get they don't have to put up any upfront capital for the investment, assuming that they're not also the system owner. They're going to get a rent income, again, assuming they're not the system owner, and they're going to have market visibility. So we're going to be promoting these projects and the people that are hosting them on our website in some shape or form. And so you'll get some market visibility from that. And, you could potentially also have some sort of a plaque if you're a host on your facility that says that you're hosting a community solar array, things like that. The system owner is going to receive the payment from Austin Energy for the energy produced, and they will also have some of that market visibility, or marketing visibility, I should say. And then Austin Energy Community Solar Program is also, we're getting that energy into the program without that capital investment. So that's a benefit to the program. We also will share in that market visibility. And then through the program, it will retain the RECs produced by this generation and attribute those to customer consumptions for participation in that program. Next slide. And so now we'll move on to the tariff. So council has approved this tariff. The standard offer writer will require that you're basically setting up a new service, and that new service will be billed for consumption. So at night, when the inverters are in standby mode, there is a small amount of consumption that happens. You will receive a bill for that and be responsible to pay that bill. Non-payment of that bill could result in disconnection, which would then preclude you from being able to produce. So you definitely want to make sure you're making those bill payments. They're based on the SEC 2 rate for less than 10 kW. And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail in further slides. But then, so you'll get that bill for your consumption, and you will also get a check, at least to start with, for your production no less than every 3 months. And you'll always get payment for that, I said, at least to start with, because we could move to a realm where we are able to do direct deposit payments for these in the future, but we do not have that functionality yet. In fact, the automated functionality that we thought we had to make these payments, we can't take that route. So we're having to kind of do hand billing at first, but we will work to automate the payments as quickly as possible. So the payments will be based on the production of the system and the system size. For systems under 1 megawatt in size, and that's based on the inverter capacity, the inverter nameplate capacity, I should say, the production from those systems will receive 11.24 cents per kilowatt hour. And for systems over a megawatt, because Austin Energy cannot leverage transmission benefits from those systems, there's a reduced rate. And so the production from systems over a megawatt would be credited at 8.41 cents per kilowatt hour. So beginning in March of 2026, the rates will be adjusted to incorporate the average of the previous 5 years of avoided cost assessments. The standard offer rate will be adjusted every 3 years thereafter, tied to the average of the previous 5 years of avoided costs. So this rate currently reflects the previous 3 years of avoided costs. As we continue to do that backward-looking analysis based on known and measurables, where we're lining up the actual production of these systems to ERCOT market pricing and ancillary service markets, as well as transmission. We do that annual assessment. We have the current value is based on 21, 22, and 23. So when we adjust in 2026, that value will be based on 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So, we'll, as we do those analysis, we will post those on the website so that you guys have some visibility into the value and be able to anticipate whether or not it is increasing. I'll say from 21 to 22, there was a very substantial increase in that value. The energy value portion of that value more than doubled during that time. And so that value is reflected in the 22 and 23 years, and it kind of maintained, maybe reduced a little bit from 22 to 23. So, it's yet to be seen what's going to happen in 24 and 25. But, we will post those results as soon as we get them, and you guys can draw your own conclusions. Next slide. So you're going to receive a bill from Austin Energy, as I stated, for your consumption. And on that bill, you're going to have a delivered read and a received read. So this is from the perspective of the grid. So delivered energy is energy that comes from the grid to serve your load. So that's what your bill will be based on, the delivered energy read here. And then, all of the subsequent charges will be based on that delivered energy read. And then your credit will be based on the received energy read. So your check that you get at the standard offer rate will be based on the kilowatt hours produced over the period of time that the check covers it. At first, we expect that to be quarterly, and then moving forward, that could change to monthly potentially, and it could change from a check to direct deposit. We're doing what we can to make that as efficient and user-friendly as possible. Next slide. All right, so now I'm going to pass it over.
All right, so how do you become a participating contractor with Austin Energy? So first, you're going to need to register with the City of Austin. Registering allows you to participate in Austin Energy rebate programs and bid on City of Austin projects. Once you've registered with the city, then you can register to become a participating contractor with Austin Energy. Some required documents include our handbook, our code of conduct and FACTA, your electrical contractor license, workers' comp, liability, and auto insurance. Some ongoing requirements is just to ensure that all documents are current and not expired, and adherence to compliance. We also recommend you attend our contractor training meetings monthly so that you can stay up to date, especially when it comes to EECP process. All right, FACTA definition and examples. What is FACTA? It's a federal act mandating businesses and individuals to take appropriate security measures to protect customer information against unauthorized access to or use of the information. Security measures examples: truncate credit and debit card numbers, limit access of customer information to authorized personnel, and create an environment where data is safe from prying eyes. Some FACTA data includes name, social security number, phone number, physical address, and email address. Responsible parties include Austin Energy and its vendors and contractors. All right, how to register with the City of Austin. You're going to need to create a new account on the AB and C portal. That is linked, and we will send out this slide deck with these links after the meeting. You'll also need to register as a contractor at austintexas.gov. You'll navigate to new professional trade contractor registration and follow the instructions to submit the registration information using the web form. You'll also link your contractor registration to your AB and C account. and go to the contractor registration page, select update existing contractor registration information and licenses. And once you're done with that, you will register with Austin Energy. You'll need to create an account with the City of Austin Vendor Connection. And then you'll follow this link to become a participating solar contractor. And that will provide you access to, enrolling in any of our rebate and incentive programs. Some supporting documentation will be your electrical contractor's license, commercial general liability, auto liability, and workers' comp. And some required documents to become a participating contractor with Austin Energy. You'll need to sign the updated contractor handbook. We just updated that this month. So if you're on our contractor email list, you should have received that. It's due by January 16th. You need to sign the code of conduct and review and sign the FACTA acknowledgement form. You'll also need to provide the following information for your company: name, title, email, phone, company name, and company address.
All right, before we get to program documents here, I see another question in the chat. If you register as a system owner, do you have to register as a participating contractor? Correct me if I'm wrong here, but system owners, they don't have to register with Austin Energy. However, they will have to register as a vendor with the city, and that allows Austin Energy to be able to pay them. So they'll have to do the first part of the registration, but not the second. Second question here, those documents are only needed for contractors not already enrolled, correct? That is correct. If you're already a participating contractor registered with the city and Austin Energy, I believe only the training, this mandatory training, and an updated handbook are the needed pieces for those to go forward. Anyone else on my team want to add to that?
I did want to add that there is a special link for the solar standard offer, so you will still have to go through and submit your documents for solar standard offer. They can be the same ones that you submit for the regular solar program. They are just two different links, so you'll still have to register through that.
Gotcha. Thank you, Athena. Program documents here. Program documents are pretty much just like our existing solar programs, trying to keep it in sync here. We have guidelines and we have the customer agreement form, also known as the CAF. Please note that these were recently updated. We had them on our website. We still have them on our website. But we recently got guidance from other internal departments. So we had to make some revisions here. These guidelines that are updated, we will get them posted to the website as soon as possible, but we will also send out these updated documents along with the slide deck after this meeting. The guidelines here, like the other guidelines for other programs, they outline the procedures and qualifications for the rebate program. Nothing to sign here, but this gives a very good lay of the land for our process through the program. And it also includes the scope of eligibility, obligations, required documentation, and how to submit an application. So this would be the first document to read over to give you the lay of the land of how the program is going to work. Slide. And then the customer agreement form here is the sign-off part. It acknowledges that you have read the aforementioned guidelines. It's about 3 pages here. The first page, you're initialing that you've read the essential information, confirming the responsibilities of each party. That's the property owner, host, and contractor. The second page is providing contact information for those parties. And the third page is the signatures. And so this goes hand in hand with the guidelines itself. The major changes that I mentioned for the guidelines are mainly concerning system owner insurance requirements and feasibility study requirements for projects at or over 500 kW AC. So again, major changes are system owner insurance and feasibility study requirements. And there were some minor changes, but those are the two big ones there. Any questions over documents? All right, and we will require the latest customer agreement form for the submission. So if you already had a CAF signed by parties, apologies, but we will need this latest form signed instead upon submission. Thank you.
All right, submitting projects in EECP. All right, so if you've attended our training yesterday or any of our previous trainings, this table maybe looks familiar, but for those of you who are new, basically this is sort of how we talk about EECP. This is our rebate program, and we have some workflow steps. So there are some application steps, and they're broken into 3 sections. Then we have installation, post-inspection, a QA, QC, and then after that, we will get payment verification. So the first section here is about application. So if we go to the next slide, this is what it looks like. So the first and the majority of the contractor's job is going to be in the application stage, and this is what it'll look like. We want you to put in that project description. Big note here is that projects on the downtown network are not eligible for standard offer. So this downtown network map, if you look at page 59, you'll be able to see if your project is on the downtown network. And then also just a reminder that everyone will get these slides at the end of the presentation. So if you don't have, you'll be able to get these links. Okay, so downtown network, applying for tax credits. If you are, we'd like to collect that information. So put that stuff there. And then last thing is please leave the account number blank on this section here. So if you look at customer information, you will put information for the customer, but the account number, please leave it blank. All right, next slide. Okay, so same thing with the installation address. So the premise ID, also leave it blank, but please do put in the information for the installation address. So address, city, street, all of those things we do want information on. Just the premise ID, please leave it blank. Information about the system, please put that there. The system owner, also email address is very important. The mailing address, we do want that information collected. And we do know that it's going to be different from the installation address. So make sure that you're not clicking that as same as installation button. Please put that corrected mail information there. And then the last thing under property information, construction type needs to be new construction. So even if the building exists, we do need it to be labeled as construction type new. And then of course, put in your TCAD or WCAD number, provide those there. All right, next slide. Okay. So on the application stage, the last bit of information that we'd like to know is the payee information. And then I put a box here for the email. This is where we're communicating with you all. So make sure that it is a valid email address so that we do end up getting that information. This is the payee. If there are any comments that we need, you all have access to type comments in. We also have access to type comments. Any requests can be put in that comment section. And then after that, make sure to save before you proceed on to the other steps. And this is just going to be a helpful thing for you so that you don't have to refill it out later for any reason. Just click that save button, save you some headache. All right, next slide. All right. After you fill out the application information, you'll want to go to the document section. And this section here is basically you'll click on new and you'll add your documents. What we're looking for is an AE bill, an Austin Energy bill, or a picture of the existing meter. The customer agreement form, the FEIN verification form, the layout, and the feasibility study. And this is for systems larger than 500 kW. Big thing to note here is that once you upload your documents, they can't be deleted. So just do a double check, make sure you're uploading the right documents to the right enrollment. And then a pro tip here that we just want to make sure you all are aware of, check out those signatures. The names on the documents should match what you did on the previous page in the application information. All right, next slide. Cool. Okay, so last page is the measures. So this is what the measures will look like. This is all the information from the system. So we want to know what your arrays are, what the tilt, the azimuth, all of those good things. Just to note that the minimum array tilt is 5 degrees. And then we also want to put in the contractor estimated annual generation. This value should match the CAF. So just, again, do a double check, make sure all of your paperwork matches what is in EECP. To edit it, it will look like this, but if you click on the white space, the fields will become active and you can type on them. Once you have finished putting in all that information, you can click the button, the process button up at the top, and you'll be able to submit that, the application. All right, so this is what it looks like when your application is successful. It will be in the status pending acceptance. So the only way that Austin Energy is able to review it is if it is in that pending acceptance status. We won't be able to see it if it's not in this status. So just go to this, just make sure when you're looking at it, it does have that pending acceptance status. Okay, so what happens if there is a correction that we are requesting? So if there is a correction, say, you know, there's some numbers might be askewed, then we will put the application into application incomplete. This will trigger EECP to send an automated email giving to the contractor, letting you know what needs to happen, what questions we have, what anything is there. And this is because EECP will have that record there. And that way, when we go back to it, we know what we're looking for. Once you get that email, please go ahead and make those changes within EECP. And then the next step is pretty important. Put it as requested updates complete. Just like I said before about the pending acceptance portion, we won't see anything in our bucket in EECP unless it is in this status, requested updates complete. This will send an automated email to Austin Energy reviewers, and that way we know to review the project. So these emails will come from rebates. Do not reply at rebatesautinenergy.com. It's a really long email address, but please put this in your safe sender list, and that way you know that you are going to be getting emails from this email address, and it's not spam. We won't spam you. We just want you to make sure that you are getting these communications. All right, next slide. Okay, so during this step, you will get an encumbrance letter. This shows the new address. So this is this address. It will have the letters DG at the end of it. And this DG part of it is, you know, essentially a new address. Use this address on all your permitting forms. This is what you're going to use for all the permitting things. So please make sure that you read through this encumbrance letter and just take note of the new address. It will be your exact address, just with the letters DG at the end. So make sure to just like take a moment and read through. All right, next slide. All right, so when it is encumbrance, we will put the application into a pending DGPA/contract status. So this is the status where we are, again, an automated email is going to be sent to the contractor where we're waiting for the DGPA and the contract to be uploaded into EECP. We will give you 180 days to upload these documents, and we will still review. Once you have uploaded those documents, make sure to put the status in DGPA/contract submitted. Once it's in that status, it's the same thing where we get it in our bucket and we are able to review it. So the email will be sent to to the contractor, uploads his documents, change the reason code, and we'll be able to check it out. All right, next slide. All right. So you're like, is it approved yet? All right. You know that you're going to get your letter of approval, and it's going to look like this. This is how you know that everything has been approved once you get this letter. So I mentioned early on to make sure that those email addresses are correct. It's because that is our direct form of communication is through these emails. This here is the letter of approval. You are good to install. It does have the enrollment number, the address, and your approval. All right, next slide. Okay, so you're like, all right, am I done yet? Well, hold on. We have the next time that the contractor is going to touch the application is during the installation phase. So we have had a back and forth, but then you received your letter of approval. That's when you're good to install. So after you finish installing, EECP is going to call, we have an installation step. So this is the step where you're going to upload your final invoice and any changes that you had. All right, next slide. All right, so this is what it looks like when it is in the open unscheduled awaiting. This is in the contractor's bucket. And this is when you'll have that next line item of, or next, action items. All right, so this is when you click into the installation step, you do have a couple of questions. Please make sure to put your actual visit date. And then we have some drop downs. Has the measure been uploaded for inspection? And then has the inspection been requested? So these two are yes, no questions. Please make sure to review them. If you need to, when you schedule an inspection, you can use it through the inspection request form or through Amanda. And then also make sure that your actual visit date is a date that you requested the inspection for. If any changes are on the measure, this is your last chance to do so. So say the system size changed, please put that information into this step. And you just click on the white space to activate those line items. But yes, this would be the last time that you have any changes. We would like to have them in this step. And then when you're done, hit process. Okay, so last step is the QA/QAC. And so this is where Austin Energy will review the final documentation. And if there are any corrections, we will reach out to you. So if all the documentations look good, the final invoice is great, then it will be a fast and easy choice. But if there are anything that we need to go back and forth with, we will reach out to you. So this is kind of the last step before we make those payments or are able to set up anything. So we do ask that we communicate quickly just so that the enrollment can go through the process. All right, next slide. All right, so again, this is what the enrollment will look like. The bottom portion here, QA review, that's that final step. And again, we're reaching out with you. And this is where, remember way in the beginning, we asked you to leave the account number blank. This is where we're gonna put it here. And again, this is where the last step until the enrollment is complete. So please make sure that you're checking your inboxes, your emails. All right, and with that, I will pass it on to the system design permitting. Thank you.
Thank you, Athena. Appreciate it. All right, so we're going to talk about the high-level requirements for design, permitting, and installation for these systems. Next slide, please. All right, so first we're going to look at the project requirements. First of all, these systems must be sized between 50 kilowatts AC and 10 megawatts AC. Keep in mind, of course, there are additional requirements with ERCOT over 1 megawatt AC, which we can help you get started with if you're not familiar. So just keep that in mind, and of course, reach out to us with any questions on that. Systems must be sited on a commercial property. This is not yet open to residential projects. Anything over 500 kilowatts AC must be submitted with a completed feasibility study from AE. This is the feasibility study that we were referring to earlier. And just to note, this is not a new requirement for systems over 500 kilowatts AC. However, it will be new that we need to submit this with the initial application. That said, contain new equipment. These systems must also contain new equipment that's listed by California Energy Commission. All design requirements need to meet National Electric Code, the Design Criteria Manual, and the Interconnection Guide. We will get into these here in the next few slides. All must meet all permitting requirements as specified by the City of Austin ordinances. Again, feel free to reach out or just search these in your favorite search provider if you're not familiar with those. And then finally, all of these projects must receive AE standard offer application and interconnection approval prior to construction. That's really important. So make sure that that approval is going out, just like Athena just mentioned. You're getting that letter before you put anything on the roof or anything on the wall. Alrighty, next slide, please. And I apologize, I mentioned this at the beginning. Could I get a quick thumbs up if you guys are brand new to the City of Austin and have not done any permitting in the city before? I'll kind of tailor these slides a little bit to those reactions. All right, I see a few folks. Okay, good to know. I appreciate that. So looking at these standard offer DG systems, installation will entail creating a new DG unit address for that solar service. Again, this is something that Ruby and Athena, I think, both mentioned. So keep in mind that we are going to do this for you. AE will create the non-911 address as part of the application process. When you submit an ECP, we'll kickstart that process off. All projects documented related to permitting interconnection will be for that new DG address. So the subtext there is wait until you have that 911 address to submit that permitting interconnection paperwork, just so you know that you've got that information all ready to go before you submit those to DSD. All right, creating a new DG service for the solar installation. Contractors will pull permits for the solar install under that new DG address. Service will be comprised of one DG meter that will support the solar install. And then the DG service meter will be located on the utility side of the meter. So keep those things in mind. If you got questions, of course, feel free to reach out, but we'll get into a few more details in the next couple of slides. All right, thank you. All of these projects for standard offer anything inside of the city limits, which will be a larger portion, I believe, of most of these projects, will require plan review. The plan review process is overseen by the Development Services Department Commercial Intake Team, so just keep that in mind. If you've got questions, of course, reach out to us. We're happy to help you facilitate that. But if you're having any issues with the system itself or struggling to submit those applications, you can also reach out there to the Commercial Intake Team. These require a separate application and review process. So if you're used to logging into the Austin Build and Connect portal and applying there, just keep in mind that these programs actually go through that commercial plan review link that you see right there on the page. So you'll use that instead to start the application. Once you've submitted the application, however, you'll be able to see those details in that Austin Build and Connect permit portal. These projects will require at minimum a plan review permit, a building permit, a new commercial electrical permit, and that'll be what that DG system is tied to, and an auxiliary electrical permit. And that will be what covers the solar capacity and the solar inspection as well, or inspections, I should say. Couple of notes here just to point out at the very beginning when you're sort of looking at these, starting these processes. So you'll need to contact AE Design to configure and locate a new service location. You can check out AE Design Criteria Manual 1.4.0 for establishing new AE service and looking at what that needs to look like. And you can also contact them either through an AEAS permit, an Austin Energy Additional Services permit, where you apply for that and then basically meet with the team and submit your design documents there. Or you can call if you just want to ask questions before you get started to either North or South. North is going to be Kramer Design, and then South is going to be St. Elmo. So All of this information can be found on our website. But again, reach out with any questions as you start that process. Also, just one thing to note, and again, we'll talk about these a little bit later, but CAE Distribution Interconnection Guide, figures B8 through B13 in Appendix B for these new DG service connections. Those are going to help you provide some diagrams for what your design should look like as you're designing this and building these out. All right, next slide, please. So one thing that we mentioned, and a lot of you are probably very familiar with, is the auxiliary power electrical permits. Those are a requirement for this process. However, again, you will not start those until after that plan review process. But every single distributed generation project is connected to the energy grid will require that aux power permit. So just keep that in mind. One thing to note here, we have a link to download the Austin Energy Solar Permitting Manual. It will be ready in January. I do apologize for that. It should be the only link that doesn't work in here. Everything else, hopefully you will have access to as soon as this call is over. But that said, just keep an eye out for that in January to come. Ruby already went through this process, so I won't spend too much time here, but in order to apply for permits, you first need to register as a vendor with the City of Austin. That will also allow you to get that access to that AB&C portal. And then, like she mentioned, and attach your electrical contractor status to that portal so that you're able to apply for those electrical permits. Once a registered vendor, you'll receive that those login credentials to AB&C. And then from there, you can check permit status, make payments, request inspections. So all of that can be done through that portal. Next slide, please. All right, the distribution interconnection guide. This is going to be the guide that outlines the process for designing and connecting distributed generation facilities. This is going to be a really helpful resource if you haven't done business in Austin Energy before, because it also defines minimum technical requirements for safe integration of the customer-owned power production facilities within our territory. So just keep in mind, this is a very, very helpful reference. Again, you can download that link there and refer to Appendix B for those figures that we were referring to earlier. You also might want to start with pages 15 to 25, which discuss interconnections for systems over 50 kW and to 500, and then from 500 up to 10 megawatts. So just keep those sections in mind. That is something that you're going to want to check out as you're looking to start these projects. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's an example of one of those figures. This is figure B12 within that interconnection guide. This is the new DG service created on the utility side of the customer meter. So again, if you have not done that before, here's what that project should look like. Standard offer meters should be wired as revenue meters. Not sure if you guys have heard this before, but white dot towards the pot. In other words, point the white dot towards the service. For billing purposes, received read is going to be what AE receives from the customer, and delivered read is going to be what AE delivers to the customer. So just keep that in mind. Again, for billing, if you guys have questions on that, feel free to reach out. The final piece of this puzzle, of course, is metering guidelines for instrument rated metering, particularly because a lot of these projects are going to be larger. We want to make sure that's something that y'all are familiar with. So please do check that out ahead of time before and when, I guess, putting that design together in order to pitch these projects. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so as we referred to earlier, this is the design criteria manual. You can select that link right there to download the full manual online. Couple things to note here, pages 117 to 120 and section 1.12 refer to DG interconnection standards that will apply to these projects, so please check that out. Also see 1913 for self-contained meter sockets, 1919 for CT enclosure requirements. There's a lot of really great details in here in terms of how to build your service or how to tie into AE service and interconnect to the grid. So please, please do check that out and reach out with any questions. Alrighty, next slide, please. Okay, so one thing I mentioned earlier is the AB&C permitting portal. This is what that looks like. So once you have vendor registration complete and you are in this permitting portal, you will have access to be able to, again, apply for those permits, pay for permits, update those details, upload your DGPAs and ESPAs and things like that, and then request inspections as well. This information, just note, is public and is available through the open data portal. So if you guys have customers and or system owners that have questions about this that do not yet have access to that AB&C portal, just know that they can use the open data portal to verify those permit details and check those statuses. For any commercial auxiliary electrical permits inside the city, we already talked about that, which will undergo plan review. But anything outside of the city, if you're not familiar with this area, we've referred to it as the extraterritorial jurisdiction. Basically, it's the part of Austin that Austin Energy covers, but is not within the city of Austin. For those types of permits, those commercial applications can be submitted through the Austin Build and Connect portal. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking at, again, initiating those permit applications. All right, and I think that is it. So I'll pass it back for next steps. Thank you.
It looks like we have some hands raised first. Russ, do you want to go ahead if you have a question? If not, Russ, Jessica, do you have a question as well? Okay, awesome. Good deal. Thank you, Grant. Appreciate it. All right, next steps. Go ahead. Thank you.
All right. For the registration links, like we said in previous slides, you can register with City of Austin through this link, and then registering with AE to become a participating contractor. To contact us specifically about solar standard offer, we have an inquiry form found on our website. That is linked, and then our email, solarstandardoffer@austinenergy.com. We could answer any questions you might have about this specific program. And then open the floor to questions. And there's no link for attendance.
There's a question, will DSD perform electric plan review? Can you confirm, Megan? I assume so.
I apologize. I started to type it in the chat. So DSD will not perform electric plan review, but Austin Energy will.
And then Angela, yes, the system owner will receive an above the value of solar value for their energy generation through March 2026. Once March 2026 rolls around, the standard offer rate and value of solar rate will align.
With the exception that the value of solar rate includes
Yes.
societal benefits and the standard offer rate does not.
Correct.
Sorry, so it will go down in 2026 then, basically back down to what it currently is, just so I can communicate this properly.
No. So currently the standard offer tariff is based on the test years 2021, 22, and 23. And historically, 2021 was quite low compared to 22 and 23. So we will in 2026, when it adjusts, it will then become based on 2021, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So if the market continues to be, where it's at or goes up, then that rate will definitely go up. But if the market goes down, then it may go down. But it would have to go down pretty precipitously to go down at that point. But we can't make those conclusions at this point. But what we can do is produce the results of our annual studies so that you can look at those and, sort of draw your own conclusions. I see Russ has had his hand up for a while. If you don't have a question, please put your hand down. If you do, feel free to ask. But then I see that Grant has his hand up next.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I'm just new to this. Prologis owns buildings, but we in Austin, but we also develop rooftop solar projects on our buildings in other states. So we're just trying to understand whether or not this is something we could or ought to participate in. And I noticed the 500 kilowatt or above facility study requirements. So I'm just trying to understand, is this program intended for new systems, like brand new, no development done, or systems should have been submitted a while ago and gone through some length of time under a facility study? Maybe it's just unfamiliarity with Austin Energy's facility study timelines, but is it realistic that if we've not submitted anything to you already, that we would be able to participate by January 13th?
Good question. So we have not accepted any applications for this program as of yet. So, everybody's starting from square one. If you're the building owner, then you'll want to consider, whether or not it behooves you to take this approach through the standard offer program or to install the solar behind your meter. So it depends on, I don't know what kind of buildings you have. I don't know what kind of accounts you have. But if you are paying the electric bills there, then you may want to consider doing it behind the meter, because then you would be eligible for incentives. And so you would want to check out our incentive program. And then also, when all of these rates adjust, the value of solar at the end of the day is going to end up being a higher rate. It's not currently, but it will be in 2026 and moving forward from there, because it has an added benefit of the societal benefits adjustment.
Right, I understand. I guess my question is, if we were to start preparing an application today for this program, and we submit it's over 500 kilowatts, so it would require a facility study. Is that acceptable that we would submit on the day the program opens without a completed facility study, or is the facility study actually a very short amount of time?
Yeah, the feasibility study is relatively short, the turnaround time on that. So you would need to, any system over 500 is going to have to submit for a feasibility study. That study is not a super in-depth and long study, but it will kind of identify potential system upgrades required if, the hosting capacity or maybe the transformer or whatever may cause some kind of constraint that requires an upgrade. It will be identified at that point. And we need to submit the results of that feasibility study with your application, and then that will allow you to move forward through the process.
So that study needs to be completed prior to application submission, or just proof that we've submitted for the study and the study will be completed sort of in parallel?
The study needs to be complete before, I mean, you can start the application. We won't look at the application until it's 100% ready to go. So with that study completed, attached, and then at that point, you can process it and move it forward, and then it will be in our queue to review.
Those studies generally take less than a week, but we don't know what the demand of this program is going to do to that process. So, if there's a very extremely high demand on the program, then that could slow down that. But those studies will be performed on a first come, first served basis. Energy ray operations.
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I submitted my question in the chat. So I apologize if I missed this somewhere in the presentation. I've had a couple of fires that I had to put out this morning. But I wanted to verify, just make sure that I'm on the right track. So my company is already listed as a participating contractor on the residential side. We are listed and registered with the city of Austin. We're definitely really interested in the commercial side. So I just want to verify, like after attending this call, do I just begin that process of getting listed or approved with Austin Energy on the commercial side so I can start that right away? Is there anything additional that I need to make sure I take care of?
Hi, so I'm gonna drop in the chat again. So basically the way that EECP works is that you guys are put in buckets, residential, commercial, standard offer. So if you fill it out again with, this is for the standard offer bucket, then we'll be able to get you, so that you're able to fill out those applications. Does that make sense?
Okay, it does make
Thank you.
sense. The thing is that when I type in the tax ID, it's not letting me move forward because it's stating that it already exists. Do I just enter the social security?
Yes, and if it's still giving you an issue, would you mind sending an email to our email address and then I can see if there is an issue on our end? But you should be able to use the Social Security as the option.
Okay, yeah, that's why I figured I'd raise my hand and officially like ask just to make sure, because I thought I was trying to do it while y'all were presenting and I was getting that error message and I think someone else mentioned it on the chat as well. So I was like, am I missing something? I just wasn't too sure.
No, I definitely appreciate that. So thank you so much for raising your hand.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Y'all, it sounds like we've covered the questions you have at this time.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
can I ask a quick question? Sorry. I
Yes,
posted
please.
it on the notes on the chat, but I'll just go ahead and ask. My question was, so we've already submitted the we've already submitted a project on the feasibility study, but my question is, can during application, if the system size changes by around 150 200 kilowatt, would that feasibility study still suffice, or should we submit? Would we be required to submit a new feasibility study with the actual system size? Because is it possible if the system size, system capacity changes from the feasibility to the actual application?
Yeah, we anticipate that the system size may change in between them. The feasibility study will give you guys some input. If it gets flagged, again, it's not a full in-depth long-term study, it's a courtesy free study for y'all. So you may get feedback as a result of that if we think that there may be issues. I would anticipate that in reaction to that, you guys may change the system sizes, but you can put it forward with that study. We just want to be aware of what that study is saying, and then if they flag it for needing additional study, which is going to happen to any system that's over a megawatt, and also anything that on a light investigation seems like it's going to be hosting capacity restrained. Then after we encumber the project, you can still submit the study, with a note on it saying this is going to need further work. And our requirement when we encumber the project, meaning we reserve that capacity, and as like a let's continue, not a let's install yet, obviously, is that if it's flagged for an impact study, you guys, within a month, take steps to get that study, moving. So submit a request to have that study done. So the system sizes can change, but we just ask that if you know that the system size is like, if the system where it's installed as its size is going to require an impact study, that you take action on that and not sit on it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Yeah. And I see we have another one as well. Scott?
Yeah, I was wondering, has Austin Energy made any statement about the duration of this program from the system owner's perspective? So if they're going to invest this money, how many years will it run? Do we have an expectation of being grandfathered? Should, something change 8 years from now and they say, oh, we don't want to do this anymore? What happens to the system owner?
We expect this rate to run indefinitely into perpetuity, similar to the value of solar rate.
Yeah, the program is to kind of, as we're launching this rate and this new style of community solar, the program aspect of this is to kind of, handhold the first projects. And again, as Tim spoke to, make sure that we're doing this with operational efficiency. It's a new type of installation with a new service, on the utility side of an existing customer meter, that sort of thing. So the program part is a lot of the intake part, and then also just the customer agreement forms, but the rate itself is ongoing. So when we say pause the program too, to be clear, we're pausing the intake part of it just so that we can review our processes and make sure that everything is solid, with the intent of if we find anything, reopening it better than it was before. But that rate is ongoing and is not affected by the pause. Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just trying to anticipate a question of, we all on this call understand the value of what's happening here, but as an investor, you might say like, well, this is like a PPA, except it has no contractual term attached to the PPA. It's just ongoing, in perpetuity sounds great, except there's no promise. It's a weakness. So
It's the flip side of the benefit of not having to go through full contracting with us. But
Right.
Yeah, I hear you.
And then one other sort of step back from the details of installation is that I would think the pause is to sort of look at whether or not you guys are able to productize this community solar. Clearly, there's a wait list right now, and that's wonderful. But community solar would be, the idea of what we're doing here is to allow you guys to package community solar as a specific product that people can sign up to with a different tariff attributes than the normal tariff, correct?
Correct.
And so will the pause be to sort of see like, well, what if you subscribed up to, 12 or 15 megawatts, but then no one's signing up for the remaining 5 megawatts? That might really call into question whether or not this extends beyond 20 megawatts, would it?
No. So we've made this rate to reflect our avoided costs purposefully so that we can continue to provide this rate into perpetuity without negatively affecting our customers. So we're pretty comfortable, having long-term engagement on, with the producers in this program through the rate. And we're also pretty comfortable with expanding it. The point of the 20 megawatt pause is basically for us to look at operational efficiency and such. If there is if the program participation wanes on the community solar side of things, that doesn't mean we will stop expanding this portfolio. We've done a
Wonderful.
similar thing
Thank you.
with our wind projects. If you want to kind of look back in history, we had
That's
a green
true.
choice program that was batched to wind, and we started just doing a lot more wind projects. Now, you know, the customer subscription of our wind is a tiny fraction of the amount of capacity we have there. And that could happen here potentially, you know, but ideally, you know, we can market this to our customers and sell it on the community solar program side.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Feel free to speak up.
Yes, I've got one. Dakota Kelly here. We've been looking at pricing projects under the standard offer program, and there's one area that's a little ambiguous, partially answered here on the discussion with respect to interconnection, the physical installation of the interconnection. And earlier in the slide deck here, there was a example diagram shared that implied Austin Energy would allow the community solar to tie into existing service conductors between the host transformer, but on the utility or line side of their existing billing meter. Is that a correct interpretation? Or in other words, would that be permitted? The other side of that question is typically within Austin Energy's territory for a, you know, with air quotes here, typical building, the billing meter is physically attached or immediately adjacent to the service transformer. And so the ability to tie in there may not be possible. And we've been unclear up to this point whether or not this program we're going to require a new service transformer as part of this new service dedicated to the community solar installation. And putting a cost to that portion of the project has been a challenge. The standard rider indicates that if Austin Energy incurs costs to accommodate the community solar, that those costs would be collected directly from the solar integrator in the form of contribution in aid of construction. And I was hoping to maybe get a little light shown on what that means.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that these will be able to utilize the existing transformer to the extent that there's capacity there. So for example, and you can look at our distribution interconnection guide and our design criteria to get more information on this. But basically, we allow the solar to be sized up to 90% of the transformer rating. So that's a limitation there, but it also, you know, enables that amount of solar behind that transformer without requiring an additional transformer or a transformer upgrade. If you wanted to do a system that exceeded that amount, then you would have to upgrade the transformer to be able to accommodate that.
Okay, yeah, and I think there's a potential six-figure difference in cost between how that occurs. So in other words, if a transformer needed to be upgraded, would Austin Energy do that upgrade, procure the transformer, et cetera, and then charge the integrator according to Austin Energy's cost?
Yeah, and that would be identified in the feasibility study. And there would be some rough numbers associated with that, as I understand it. But correct me if I'm wrong there, Val.
Yes,
or Brian,
that's
if he's on the call. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that.
Certainly. Any other questions?
Is the conversation around some sort of anticipation of future recyclability, is that completely shelved for this year, for this moment?
It's shelved at the moment. Yes, it's something that we're exploring, but until we put it in the guidelines, it won't be a requirement for the the systems that are being installed. And we will likely not put it into the guidelines until we have a clear path for that on y'all's side. So, you know, and one that's enabled through the city. So as I mentioned, that we're currently exploring that with ARR, which is Austin Resource and Recovery, and others. And, you know, so there could be a future requirement, but currently there is not one. Although I would say it's best practice, and, you know, we hope that you guys would consider that for the end of life for your systems, even from the onset.
Yeah. This is just sort of a future scenario question. Is there anything that would, you know, prevent, again, at this sort of conceptual conversation level, in the future, a building converting a solar standard offer system to a behind the meter system and doing the work to convert it to that, you know, down the road?
I think there's potential for that. I don't see why not. It would just have to, you know, meet the interconnection requirements of behind the meter. So that interconnection point would have to change. And so there would definitely be some electrical rework required at that time. And it would not be eligible for incentives because, you know, then it's at that point, it's a used system. But I can't see any other barriers at the moment of why that couldn't happen in the future.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I asked it in the chat. Apologies if I've missed it. But you've mentioned a pause at 20 megawatts. Is there an anticipated total capacity, whether it's this year or cumulative over multiple years?
No. As I mentioned before, we plan to pause at 20 megawatts. We do not have any other pauses planned to this program. This is just the rate was designed to be a long-term offering.
As in after an
No
evaluation at
capacity limits after the 20 megawatt for the program. That doesn't mean we couldn't shut it down in the future and stop accepting applications. Well, we would, you know, obviously continue to provide the payment through the rate for any existing systems. But the intention from Austin Energy is to only pause at 20 megawatts. And then after that, this would be an ongoing offering into perpetuity. And the reason we can do that is because we're tying it to our avoided costs. So in practice, this should never increase cost to our customers, but will enable us to move forward towards our renewable energy goals, which are pretty lofty.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sir. You know, that's it. I'll mention this, you know, having said that, potentially some point in the future, we start to have hosting capacity constraints, and, you know, the program could be confined by that at some point. All right, any other questions? All right. Well, you can always address your questions to solar@austinenergy.com. And we will work to get those answered, or fill out the form on the website where you can ask questions, and we'll happily receive them that way as well. Before we leave, I just want to acknowledge the tremendous efforts of my staff to prepare this program for launch. They have been working tirelessly on this, and so they deserve some appreciation for sure. And we're looking forward to some real success in this program, and everybody's very interested to see how this is going to play out. So thanks everyone for attending today, and have happy and safe holidays.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.